Hi everyone, welcome to Watch It Played Table Talk Back. My name is Rodney Smith, and in this episode we're going to take a look at your responses to the question, how and when should we introduce gaming to children? Cell H wrote in, I have purchased a few games for the iPad, which makes some of the fiddlier games easier to manage for my niece, now 8, and nephew, almost 6. Ticket to Ride excels where it shows the links and automatically works out the completed routes. This is a super idea. Now, I know personally, I really enjoy board games and being able to pick up the pieces. But that said, one thing kids are very familiar with these days are digital devices. So this might be a great way to transition them, get them comfortable on the digital device first, and then when you haul out the actual game and they realize I can hold my own train pieces and Ticket to Ride, how exciting is that going to be? Now, of course, some kids may automatically just enjoy that board game experience right away. But Sal brings up a very good point. The digital device will prevent the child from breaking the rules. So it'll help guide them as they're learning the game, and that's pretty handy. Okay, Crits Happen says, I feel gaming with my boys, seeing them learn the rules and read the cards and components has helped them tremendously. With some games, we won't play them until Zach has read the rules himself, which he does as feverishly as reading a Lego catalog. That's pretty cool, Scott. Now, I gotta admit, Luke, he's an avid reader. He really does read a lot, actually, but he doesn't enjoy reading rules, so he hasn't adopted that from his father. But I think if you have a child who's willing to tackle a game and learn the rules, you're adding just another layer to their learning experience, being able to read rules, which are very abstract, and then interpret that to something that's practical, the actual game components, and see how they work. I think if you've got a child who's willing to do that, that's fantastic, and you've probably got a pretty serious game raw in your hands as they grow up. Crabble1337 says, I would say that most of the things you said can also be applied to older people with which you want to play a game with. You know what? You're absolutely right, actually. I got thinking about that. All of the tips and suggestions we talked about in the Table Talk episode really would apply not just to older people, but someone who's new to the hobby in general. Introduce a theme they're going to enjoy. Be patient. Take your time. Make the gaming special. Don't make it something you're just hitting them with every time you see them. Those are good tips. I think they're especially good for children, but I think it does apply across the board. Good point. Samir Parker says, Hi Rodney, so what age did you start Luke with Caribou? Samir, I answered this question in the YouTube comments. I think I told you he was 4, but then I checked with my wife and it turns out he was 3, so I had that wrong. But the important part here is that when I introduced gaming to him, it was done as an activity for fun, not really as a way to breed him into a hardcore gamer. That might have been the byproduct, so take from that what you will. Gameritis Guy says, I believe patience is the main thing to have. I think early on I tried to get my daughter to play with her toys correctly, when instead she would just throw them around. So I just joined her in the chaos. Now she's actually playing with them as they were intended, and I felt silly for trying to force her earlier. I think any parent would tell you this is one of the big challenges, you know, knowing when to get in there and try to compel, force, cajole your child into doing things the way they're supposed to, and when to let them grow into it naturally. That said, I don't think it's ever too early to teach them to treat your components well. No bending my cards. Benedictix says, I agree that it is good to teach children games, but of course depends on the game. There are games I would not play with children, mostly games which are based on screwing over players. This is a really good point. You know, I would certainly keep certain games away from Luke when he was younger because of the theme. Maybe I felt it was too dark or too serious or too gory or something like that. But there are also games, like ones with a traitor element or something that would require bluffing or lying, that I would also avoid with Luke because I didn't want to encourage that kind of behavior and confuse him and say, okay, it's okay to lie here, but it's not okay to lie there. I don't think children are able to distinguish those differences early on, so you're kind of burdening them with a difficult responsibility if you expect them to know when to turn that on and off when they're quite young. So now that he's older, and I believe he does know the difference between playtime and, let's say, real life, then I don't mind introducing that so much. And it turns out he's unnaturally good at it. Okay, Gentle Eruterus says, my child is still an ovum, but I'll attempt to teach him or her Twilight Imperium 3 this weekend. Jared Bayswinger says, my first daughter will be born around November 25th, so I'm wondering if I should set up Mage Night this weekend, just in case she comes early. think you guys might be worse than I am. Red Claw 87 says, one of my early games was chess, 5 or 6 years old. I and my dad played it a lot, and he did not go easy on me, and I lost every game until I was 14 years old. Was it disappointing to lose? No, it gave me a goal to achieve, and I kept trying and challenged myself to do better. And after I won the first time, I wanted to make that happen more often. Letting kids win is not always a good idea. Red Claw, I agree completely. Not only is letting your child lose a good idea because it then gives you an opportunity to teach them how to lose gracefully, but it is an excellent motivational tool. And I've heard people say, you know, winning or losing, that's not the important part about the game, so who cares if I let them win every time? Well, because you just created your own counter argument there. If winning is not the most important part of the game, then why are you letting your child win every time? You're basically making winning the most important part by your own actions. And honestly, if you hand that win to your child time and time again, then it's going to have no value to them. When you work for that win and then you get it, it means so much more to you as a child. I know this because I had the same experience. My grandfather, one of the most fun I had with him was playing games. And actually your story reminded me of that. I'd kind of put that out of my mind, but we would play checkers and Chinese checkers over and over and over and over again, and he would beat me pretty consistently. And then when I finally won, it felt so good. I felt like I'd really accomplished something. I think that's a very important life lesson to teach your children. Dave R. says, my 4.5-year-old loves gaming with me. I keep it to short fillers like zombie dice, which she's extremely lucky in. I've been there, believe me. And allows her to make all the decisions herself while working on counting and basic adding. Games with high randomness are great, especially for that last topic we just mentioned there, but letting your children win, because this gives them a legitimate way to win, because sometimes they're going to get lucky. And that's great. It levels the playing field. It gives you both a chance to play as hard as you can and still have real outcomes. Travis Merkel says, currently I've been grooming my little 3-year-old gamer with a few things. I purchased him a set of giant foam dice, 1d4 through 1d20. We roll those around and try to compare numbers and do addition with the numbers. I also sit him on my lap while playing games and let him manipulate some pieces. He rolls a set of dice while I play escape. These are great ideas, an excellent way, especially with a young gamer, to get them around gaming without the pressure of winning and losing. You have to teach them a whole bunch of rules. And speaking of pressure and escape, that is one game that Luke, he doesn't really enjoy because of the pressure element. So that's something I've learned about him. I don't introduce games to him that have a timer. Now, he may grow out of that, but for now, he doesn't like it very much. Spiderfinger86 says, my son has been involved with my board games since he was 2 years old. He would help me unbox and punch out bits and store them in baggies. You know what? Although it can be work to unpunch games, kids often like this, and I've done the same thing with Luke, and he actually enjoys that, punching out the tokens and stuff, so that's a great idea. Leo Diaz says, handicap yourself or intentionally lose once in a while to sprout the wins. Now, despite what I said earlier about winning and not letting your children win all of the time, I actually agree with this. I think it is a nice reward, especially if you've seen your child trying hard and they've lost a few times in a row. I've done this with Luke before, when he was younger more than now, to keep him from being discouraged, especially if I saw him working really hard. If he made a couple of really good decisions during the game, then I might make a suboptimal decision in order to give him the win. And I think that's something you have to judge for yourself, you know, when that little carrot is necessary to help your child stay invested in enjoying themselves in the game. Because remember, at the end of the day, it is supposed to be fun, and winning is fun. Leo Diaz also summarized my whole segment this way. So in other words, Rodney, if you can't find a good gaming group, just make one yourself? Leo, I know you're kidding. I assure you, I do not recommend having children for the sake of creating your own in-home gaming group, although it can be a very nice byproduct. Listen, I want to thank all of you guys for continuing to contribute to these table talk discussions. I really get a lot out of reading all of your comments, and I do read all of them, and it's just unfortunate I cannot possibly include all of them in these table talk back segments, or they would be too long. But please continue to write in. Hopefully, by doing a whole variety of different responses, eventually I'll get to one of yours if you're hoping to see your name mentioned in these. I also got some great video responses as always, and I'm going to share with you some clips from those right now. I have to apologize. Normally I try to make a habit of putting the YouTube channel name with each clip, and one of these clips I lost the link to the channel, so I apologize for that. If it's you, just send me an email and then I'll update that in the YouTube description. But until the next episode, thanks for watching.
Hey Rodney, it's Matt Evans here, and I'm joined today by my daughter Anna Marie. Yeah. And she's making a lot of noise this morning. So obviously I don't have a lot to add to this discussion. She's not exactly playing games yet. But I just wanted to say thank you real quick for posting your video and kind of giving us an insight into how you sort of taught Luke how to get into games. And, you know, of course we'd love we'd love our kids to get into games. There's so much education involved there, the problem solving, like the spatial reasoning, all the things that you mentioned. But obviously we don't want to force them into something that they don't want to do. So I really like what you suggested, like the way you were keeping it special with Luke and kind of playing a little bit, putting it away, and sort of gradually easing him into it. I think that was really cool stuff to hear. So anyway, I just want to say thank you real quick, and as always, keep up the good work.
Hello Rodney, and hello, is that Spider? Hello Rodney, hello chaps and chappets. For me, I introduced it very early on. This is because the last time I moved house, I moved country, and I also moved language. So I would play games with my friends online, which was pretty cold, and I would play games with my daughter. I wanted her to learn to count, and I wanted her to learn to read. At first I started playing games on my own, like Arkham Horror. But just having her there, and having her present, and her participating in the rolling of dice, moving monsters or getting monsters out the monster bag, made her feel a part of the game, and she enjoyed that. Later on, we started playing games together. Obviously, you will play games which are very simple, like Parcheesi. But again, with this kind of game, you're teaching your child to count the number of pips on the dice. And then when you play with 2 dice, they learn to add up. At the moment, she's still learning to read and sound out words. Now, there are some games which are specifically designed for this. Some of these, from these guys here, they come in French and English. And as you can see, there's one called Silladingo and Conjig Dingo. And it's basically a card game where you sound out the word or the syllable, and you try and make a sentence, or you try and make a word and get points for that. What a great idea. As your child grows, you can jump up a stage and jump up another stage. And again, they're not games that you personally as an adult are going to go, ugh. They're games which you will enjoy as well. There are games like the Magic Labyrinth, which I enjoy. When you do play a big game like Agricola or Caylus, you do have to dumb down the rules, and you probably have to dumb down your level of competitiveness. So for me, I advise you to teach your kids to play games as early as you can, because it brings you a bond which you don't normally kind of get when you shove them in front of the telly, let them watch the cartoons and play their Game Boys. So thank you for your time, and thanks for watching. The left arm or the right arm? Thanks for watching.
I only recently discovered the wonderful and wide world of board gaming, and let me tell you, once I did, I fell pretty hard. I like to think that I've started a pretty solid collection, and much of it was inspired by my son. He's 10 now, and unfortunately he doesn't live with me. He lives about 2 hours away and comes to visit on the weekends. Up until recently, he was pretty much solely a video gamer. In fact, when he would come to visit on the weekends, it was a lot of the time really hard to get him away from the Xbox or the PlayStation or whatever he happened to be playing. Then a couple of months ago I discovered the show Tabletop on YouTube, and things really haven't been the same since. If I recall, the first games that we picked up were Elder Sign, Ticket to Ride, King of Tokyo, and Pandemic, I think. Of course, the first time pulling him away from the TV was a bit of a struggle, but after setting up Elder Sign for the first time, convincing him to come check out the creepy cards and the cool dice, he was hooked right away. We stuck with some of the simpler games for a while, picking up Forbidden Island and Kingsburg, and soon after, it wasn't long before he started to look for something a little bit more heavy. Some of his favorites now are Settlers of Catan and Rivals of Catan, which he handily beats me at regularly. Lords of Waterdeep, and thanks to Watch It Played, him and I have gotten into Mice and Mystics. He's even started playing games like Kalis and Stone Age and Agricola on my iPad. The best part about it is I don't think that any of our gaming systems have been turned on for, a couple of months, probably since we started board gaming. I've seen marked improvements in his reading skills, his strategizing, his problem solving, especially his attitudes towards being fair play and being a good loser. I think that the biggest thing with kids is that you can't force them into it. Obviously a gentle push in the direction to get them started is fine, but you have to let them decide what they do and do not like on their own. So all in all, I think gaming is a fantastic hobby for kids and adults alike. So in closing, I'd just like to say keep up the good work, you guys, and keep inspiring parents and kids to play more games. Thanks for watching.